Hello, witches. Before we begin, welcome. I'm Aurora Moon, and tonight's Witch Talk Live is going to be a little different from our usual conversations because we're actually going to step into the darker side of witchcraft. And this is a side nobody really talks openly about, especially not the aesthetic version and not the social media version. And we're not going to talk about the love and light that fixes everything type version because tonight we're actually talking about shadow work, baneful magic, spiritual ethics, protection, revenge, emotional responsibility, and whatever happens to us witches when we are pushed into situations that no longer feel soft, forgiving, or safe. And honestly, I think this conversation is necessary because one of the biggest problems I see in modern spirituality is the idea that anger somehow makes you less spiritual. It doesn't make sense to me because that's not true at all. But the pain that we go through does not make us less evolved. The hurt does not make us the hurt does not make us more negative, and the wanting justice does not mean that you're failing at spirituality, because anger is human, grief is human, betrayal is human, and suppressing those emotions doesn't make them disappear. It actually, when you bury them, it can go into so many different areas and it just buries it deeper. And eventually every witch reaches a point in their journey where they have to ask themselves some difficult questions. Like, what am I willing to do spiritually? What line would I never cross? What happens when someone continuously harms me? What happens when protection no longer feels like it's enough? And those questions are uncomfortable because the truth is, witchcraft is not always soft. Sometimes it's protective, sometimes it's reactive, sometimes it comes from heartbreak, and sometimes it comes from survival. And I think people are often afraid to admit that. Now, when we talk about baneful magic, most people immediately think curses or maybe hexes, jinxes, but honestly, it's much more broader than that because baneful magic can be anything intended to restrict, bind, expose, repel, sour, return, silence, or even remove someone energetically. A freezer spell can be baneful. A mirror spell can be baneful. A sour gel is usually classified as being baneful. And even protection work can become baneful depending on the intention that's behind it. And this is where ethics becomes incredibly important because there's a difference between protection and obsession. There's a difference between justice and revenge. There's a difference between reclaiming your power and becoming consumed by your anger. And that line can become very blurry when emotions are involved, especially when someone has hurt you deeply. It could be somebody who hurt your child, somebody that hurt a family member. It doesn't matter. I think one of the hardest truths about shadow work is actually realizing that every person has darkness inside of them. Every single person. Because without light or without darkness, there is no light, which is the same for light. Without lightness, there's no dark. Yeah. Did I say that right? You know what I mean? Because there has to be kind of like the yin yang symbol, right? There's a little bit of dark in the light, and there's a little bit of light in the dark. We have emotions, we have feelings, we could have a jealousy side, we have an angry side, we have a grieving side, there's a wounded side, and the side that's capable of cruelty when pushed far enough. And shadow work is not becoming darkness, is becoming honest with the darkness that already exists within us. Because when emotions are ignored or denied or spiritually bypassed, they don't disappear. They leak into everything that we do. And that includes spell work. And that's why shadow work matters. It matters so much before any kind of baneful work is even considered. Now, one thing that I find people ask about constantly is sour jars. And sour jars are usually meant to sour connection, communication. It can create separation or create energetic discomfort. People often use ingredients like vinegar, lemons, nails, black pepper, rusty objects, thorns, broken glass, hot peppers, things that is associated with irritation or conflict, bitterness and decay. You can even use rotted fruit or food. You can use salt as well, even though salt is intended under our witchcraft practice to use it as protection. But when we are using our intentions, salt can get irritating, right? It's coarse. So, and if that's mixed with something that's sour, doesn't make it sweet, it continues to make it sour. And while social media sometimes glamorizes this type of work, what most people don't talk about is that enough we how do I say it? We don't talk enough of the what we feed into our spells. So there's an emotional cost of constantly feeding anger. So if we're if we're coming from an energetic standpoint of being angry when we're doing spell work, we tend to put that into our spells. We can put that into our spells. And if you're not careful with that energy, especially with chaos magic, that can seep into other areas of your life without intending it to come back on you. Because every time we revisit rage, think about this for a second, okay? If you obsess over your target, or every time you pour pain back into your workings, you're creating a reconnecting. Like you're reconnecting yourself to that energy. And sometimes that person is usually trapped by their spell. We become trapped in our spell because we're the one that's casting it. And that's something people rarely discuss because we don't talk about how it can affect us. Remember, the same goes for war water. War water has roots in it, like folk magic traditions, that is associated with protection, but it's also associated with aggression, warding, crossing, and spiritual warfare. And traditionally, our war water contains rusty nails, stagnant water, iron, hot peppers, and other aggressive ingredients as well. And just because something exists spiritually does not mean it should be used carelessly. That's why I say knowledge matters, responsibility matters, discernment matters. That's why I started teaching you guys that at the beginning of this series, is that so you understand your feelings, you understand your emotions, you understand the workings behind your spells. Because some people will reach for baneful work immediately when what they actually need is to set boundaries. Maybe it's not the other person that's actually the issue. It might be you that's the issue, that you're not creating what is a safe place for you in your workings. So sometimes the most powerful thing as a witch that we can do is to cut cords, block access, refuse engagement, stop feeding into the cycle entirely. And because not every battle deserves your energy, not every battle deserves your spirit. Now, we can talk about gossip as well, betrayal, and what I like to call the evil tongue or evil eye energy, because honestly, this is one of the biggest reasons people become interested in baneful work to begin with. I know it sounds crazy, right? But words carry energy, and prolonged humiliation, slander, manipulation, gossip can affect someone emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and even physically over time. So we want to use our spells not in necessarily in a baneful way. They can still be intended to be baneful magic, as long as our energy is clear for the intention that we're setting behind it. To clear gossip, that's fine. To set boundaries between you and another person that may be toxic, that's fine. Because these are things that you need as a witch to honor yourself. And a lot of people may turn to freezer spells, even mirror work, tongue binding symbolism, even return to sender type spells, to harm or to stop those harmful and hateful speech. That's why I always say when I'm doing any spells, especially when it comes to money, I always throw in a little bit of clothes, because clothes are known to stop gossip and slander. And if you are trying to attract money, people talk. People like to talk about everything and nothing at all, just because maybe it's something that you have. Maybe you got a job out of the blue and that was because you did a money spell, but to somebody else, they're not going to know that. And they might start to slander you being in that position because maybe they didn't think that you deserved it. And this is where it's important that before you cast anything, you have to ask yourself, is this worth the herbs? Is this worth doing the work? Am I angry and lashing out because I want to see them suffer? Because honestly, a witch should start off with, do I want peace or do I want punishment? Because they're not the same thing. And if we're being completely honest, sometimes people don't actually want resolution. Sometimes they want emotional satisfaction. Sometimes they want someone else to hurt the way that they hurt. And while that feeling is understandable, it's important to acknowledge it honestly instead of disguising it as righteousness. That honesty is your shadow work. And if you're honest with your spell work, if you want to do a baneful spell because you have maybe, like I said, you may have nasty neighbors. Now, I don't. I have some great, amazing neighbors, and I've been in the same house for going on 11 years, and they're amazing. But I also felt like I manifested that because that's what I was looking for. But if you're not in that type of situation and you do have nasty coworkers, nasty family, nasty roommates, nasty neighbor, or anything like that, and you want to try your hand at something like that, I'm going to always say start with a freezer spell, because that is probably the most gentlest out of all of them, because all you're doing is freezing them in their tracks. Throw in a little bit of cloves in there, freeze it. Don't waste your jars in the freezer. Use little Ziploc bags. Put somebody's name in there, put some cloves in there, put some water in it, freeze it. That way you can put them in nice and flat and you can put a whole bunch more bodies in there. But remember, we don't want to obsess over our outcomes, because repeatedly casting spells on the same situation to maybe stop somebody in their tracks or doing something to harm somebody else because you think that's the right course of action, it's not really the right course of action. That is not going to empower you. If anything, that spell is going to trap you because you feel that you need to do that. Revenge, the best revenge is living a happy life. And I say that all the time. To waste your herbs, waste your jars on somebody, you really have to think it through before you decide to take action on something. Are you just angry in the moment? Or is this something that has been done to you over and over again that you feel that you need to take matters into your own hand? And to some extent, you may be justified. Okay? But remember, witchcraft amplifies intentions. And if the intention underneath the spell is unresolved anger, fixation, grief, jealousy, or desperation, that energy is going to matter in your spell. And this is why I believe that spiritual responsibility is one of the most important parts of the craft. It's not fear or shame, it's responsibility. Understanding your emotions before you act on them, understanding consequences consequences before you cast, and understanding that that energy moves in multiple directions. It's that understanding that sometimes healing yourself is harder than trying to punish somebody else. And that's what we need to focus on. If we take a step back as witches, not everything deserves a hex. Not everything deserves a curse. And mind you, some people do. I get it. There are some bad people out there that do bad things to children, to elderly, to all ages and all races. Okay, male and female both. But is it worth it? Now, being a chaos witch, I do not believe in the threefold. Some Wiccans do, or the Wiccan tradition is to believe in the threefold. Whatever you put out is going to come back to you 3 times fold. I do not believe that. And the reason why I don't believe that is because, and that's just my personal, you guys might think something else, and that is your belief. Do not just go by mine. You've got to believe it in your whole heart and soul in order for that to work in your spells. But the reason why I don't is because I am a gray witch first. And I sit and think things through before I act on them. I don't just go and curse somebody. I don't. It takes a lot of time and a lot of energy to build up that energy for a sour jar or for a curse. And I'd rather focus on healing for that person. Healing is the best gift that you can give yourself and to somebody else. If you can heal somebody by just saying, you know what, they are not going to bother me. And don't get me wrong, there are going to be some people that you're going to have to put in a jar and that you're going to have to shut up. I get it. But you have to ask yourself those questions first. And you need to ask, why am I drawn to do this? Is it because you're hurting? Is it because you want somebody to feel your pain? Remember, that pain is temporary. A breakup is temporary. There's always somebody new that may come into your life if you're open to it. So if you feel betrayed, or you've been betrayed, or you betrayed somebody, and you feel that they're acting out in a way that is not justified, maybe it is justified, and you feel that you don't want to take this anymore, okay, protection. Somebody hates you or is angry, offer them healing. Don't actually physically go to them and offer them healing. Do it in your spiritual work, because their higher self, if it's open to accepting healing, it will be open to accepting healing. If it's not, it won't. It'll just bypass that person, go to someone else. That's a little Reiki for you, okay? When it comes to energy. So you got to understand that if that person does not believe in curses, if that person does not believe in hexes or jinxes or anything, it doesn't matter what kind of spell you do. That's not going to affect them. Now, instead of getting revenge, maybe you want justice. That is far different. And you can hear it in the words. Revenge is very harsh. Justice is seeking balance for either. It could go either way. You might think you deserve justice, but maybe they deserve justice. So you got to ask yourself those questions. Is it worth it? What wound is speaking right now? Ask yourself if you're protecting yourself. Check on your protection first before you go cast something. Maybe your walls are down. Maybe you need a better protection method. Maybe you need to up your game. Maybe you need to cut ties. Like I said, those can be considered baneful, but you're not attacking anybody physically. You're not attacking them spiritually. You're releasing yourself from that attachment. So you no longer feel that attachment. You no longer feel the betrayal, or it offers you healing on a different level. It really does. But, and even though those questions are difficult, they matter. Every witch has a shadow. Every human being does. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be aware. And that is what you need to think about when you're doing any type of baneful magic. Again, mirrors can be baneful. It can be reflective. It could be, for them, you could have the mirror set up so that they have to face themselves. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe it's not a curse. Maybe you just want them to see what they've done to you. So you set up 4 mirrors around your candle. So it doesn't matter which way that they turn. They have to face themselves. See how different that changes your magic? It changes because you're not using that energy from a hurt place. It's when we use our energy from a hurt place that we lash out, we manipulate, we gaslight, we have, so many of us can have narcissistic traits that come out during this time. And maybe it only happens when you're angry. But what you need to do is you need to discover what that pain is, where that pain is coming from. That other person isn't thinking of it. You are. They might be thinking of something different. Maybe they're thinking that they're free. Maybe they're thinking happy thoughts. You don't know. So take that into consideration when you're doing your spells. Any type of spells. Any type, guys. It doesn't matter. Even your money spells. If you are doing a money spell and you are looking to gain instead of enrich, see how that's different? Enriching your life enriches everybody else. But if you're looking just for gain, that's an ego. That is an ego trip. You are speaking from ego when you are looking to get something better. I want this job over this person. How about you line yourself up with the perfect job that's ready for you, or the perfect home that's ready for you, or the perfect relationship that's ready for you? You don't need to go after somebody or something else. If it's aligned with you, it will come naturally to you. But again, you're not going to get the job if you don't put in the resume. You know, you're not going to get the job if you don't have the interview. These things all work hand in hand, and there might be competition. Doesn't mean you need to lash out. Doesn't mean that you need to take somebody out because you want that. If it's an alignment, it will find you. If not, something else will. And it's up to you whether or not you hear that message. So don't act out of anger or revenge. It's such a negative, it's such a hurt that you hold on to when you use that energy. Use your energy for good. Use your energy to manifest. It's a very different way of looking at things. Baneful magic is always going to be there. And if you need it, you know what to do. But if you are, like I said, check your boundaries first. Check yourself first. Because if you don't check yourself first, you might be the problem. You might be the problem. Anyways, I'm going to look at the comments and see who's here. I'm hoping that I got everything else. And we are going to be taking up baneful magic. I am going to teach you that stuff. However, with that being said, there's my evil cackle, guys. With that being said, I am not going to perform a spell because I have nobody that I need to be baneful for, but I will take you through the steps on how to do one if you need something like that. Because I'm not against it. Don't think that I'm against it. I'm not against it. You just have to make sure that your intentions are coming from the right space so that you know how to use your energy to manifest the outcome of your spell. And you don't want it coming back onto you. However you practice your witchcraft, whether or not you believe that it will or not, or you don't believe. I always still put in no harm to none in my spells. I still do shadow work before I cast my spells to make sure that I'm in alignment with what I'm asking, that I'm not out of line, that I'm not coming from an ego perspective, because that could be used. Your ego is your baneful in a sense. It can be, because from the ego perspective, there's greed, gluttony, jealousy, all that stuff, right? Kind of stuff that we've talked about in Bible studies. If anybody took Bible studies years ago, I haven't. When I was a kid, right? But some people do need to feel the pain that they cause. Zelda, they do. But just make sure that your intentions are not coming from a place of rage when you're doing it, because your spell can backfire. It can. Thanks, Jay. Mwah. I'm so glad you guys are here. Witchy Y2M. Nice to see you. I'm not sure if I know who you are. If I do and I don't recognize your YouTube name or whatever, just tell me down in the comments below. Lemons are amazing. Absolutely. You can use lemons. I actually did a little short today to talk about lemons, because you can use them to purify, but you can also use them to sour. Same thing with limes. Okay, so you want to just remember to do your shadow work before you go and do any spells, because that honestly is where your energy is going to come from, and from well, not necessarily a gray witch perspective, but a chaos perspective. You just want to make sure that your side of the street is clean. That way, you know that your energy is pure when you're creating the spell. Let's see. Krista, hello. Linda, hello. Yes, it's an unbearable hurt. I might have missed something here. Delilah, are you here too? Hello, honey. Nice to see you guys. Sherry. I'm just going through and saying hi. We got Acme Hi-Fi here. Sherry's always doing her thing in the back. I love how Sherry does that. She comes in and she's I'm here, I'm knitting. But does anybody have questions before I go? Because I don't know if you guys have been watching hockey, but playoffs are on. And we've got Canadian. The only Canadian team left is Montreal Canadiens, and they are up against, oh my goodness, who are they up against? Carolina. Yes. So I don't know how we're going to do, but we're going to watch that later. Hello, beautifuls. I love you guys. And if you have any questions or you want to see something that I have not done yet, please remember to put it in the comments below. You're trying, and that's why you're waiting. You know what? I'm happy for you, Zelda, because honestly, it's believe me, I know how hard it is not to lash out and go for the sour jar spell first. I get it. I've contemplated it all the time. But I will usually start with a healing spell on myself, or healing myself. I'm a Reiki master, so I can go in and I can do my shadow work quite quickly and ask myself, where is this energy coming from? And the easier that, or the more that you work with your shadow work, the easier it becomes. Now, for those of you who are still looking to work on your shadow work, please check out my books. I've got one that is Face Your Shadows, Reclaim Your Power, which is on Amazon, as well as Twin Flames and Trauma Bonds. So anybody who has been going through any twin flame relationship, dynamic, duo, whatever you want to call it, because twin flames are not easy, please check that out. I have years of experience in the twin flame category. You're welcome, Zelda. I love that you guys are here. Thank you so much for joining me. And remember, if you like, share, subscribe, ask questions, please feel free to ask questions. Do not think that your questions are going to go unnoticed. I read every comment. I also take all of your comments into consideration when I do create spells or my lives. And also remember that you can catch me on Patreon. I'm still getting my hands wrapped around that, but check it out. Zelda, sexy guys without teeth. You're too funny. Go munch. Oh, okay. I'm just seeing some of that stuff. So yeah, if you guys don't have any questions, no worries. We will talk next week. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do next week. I kind of go on my intuition and feel it out, unless you guys have some something that you do want to see, then just message me. You know, you can reach me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and here. But anyways, witches, nothing more to say on the subject. Actually, there's probably a lot more I can say on the subject, but that's a good start for now. I don't want to overwhelm you at all. And like I said, if you have any questions, just a spring cleaning spell, clean out the bad feelings. Oh yeah, we can do something like that. I always love your ideas, Jay. You always have great ideas, so I appreciate them. Thank you very much. And don't forget, like, share, subscribe. It always helps the channel out. And we want to build this coven up so that we can bring that energy in and manifest. You know, let's do it, right? Get us to exactly where we all need to be. I'm not sure if Steven is on here, but support Steven. He has just created a page for Men's Defense Network, I believe it is. And if Steven's here, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, Steven. But that is for any men that have gone through any domestic violence themselves from past relationships, because there are both. We don't just see it in the women, we see it in the men as well. Okay. So let's all support each other. And I will see you next time. So ciao for now, witches.